Hello there folks and welcome to part 29 of our MotoGP 19 career mode today. And it's the penultimate episode of the first season of our MotoGP adventure. And in today's episode we have 3 further races before the finale of this season on Thursday. So today we go firstly to one of my favourite tracks. In fact, the first 2 races today, probably 2 of my favourite tracks. Probably because I've got a good memory around them in this career mode. I've had particularly good results. And I like the tracks as well. We've got Aragon first in Spain. The last, well, not the last Spanish Grand Prix. It's the second to last. Of course, we have the Valencia GP, the last in the season. Then we have the Thailand Grand Prix, which one I think is absolutely awesome. A really nice flowing circuit. And then we have probably one of my least favourites of the season, the MotoGP Grand Prix Japan. So quite a mixed bag really there. But the last episode was titled Starting to Get Frustrated or Getting Frustrated. And that is exactly what happened last episode. So if you remember, we had the Austrian GP where we didn't really do anything, to be quite honest. We were half decent. We started to get up the grid and then we fell off the bike. But our pace showed we definitely had pace for points. But just couldn't get them, unfortunately, in the end. That continued really to Silverstone, a race where we really wanted to get points, A, for the team, and B, in our home race, of course. And once again, we were just way off the pace. It was pouring it down with rain, and on a weekend where we were just so unlucky. I'd recommend you go and watch that one back. I just thought we were so unlucky not to be a lot higher up in that race. And then, at least, we had a little bit of solace at the San Marino GP, where we got our first top 10 finish for the Honda team, and hopefully that continues into some of the races today. Now, I haven't looked at upgrades for a while. I haven't shown you upgrades, rather. But with the development points we've got so far this season on the Honda, we have made 1 upgrade to the engine, the frame, the traction control, the engine brake, and the anti-wheelie. I think I'm going to focus, if anything, in the next few races on the engine and the frame. Obviously, we can get, I think it's 40 development points every race, so bear in mind that we're probably only going to be able to make 1 upgrade at most on the engine and the frame at this point. But the bike, it rides well, so I'm not really fussed about rideability too much now. But I think what we've got to do before we upgrade any of these is make sure we can get the maximum out of what we've got at the moment, the package we've got at the moment. So without any further ado, let's get on to the first race of the day in Spain. Jesus Christ, I think this second half of the season is just turning into wet, wet, wet practically. It's absolutely unbelievable. It's pouring it down with rain at Aragon now, one of my best tracks, a little bit like Silverstone. Could this taint our weekend from the start? I'm just wondering whether it will now. Let's have a look at the FP1 and FP2 results to obviously see if there's any point us taking part in this session. If there is, we'll definitely take part. Let's have a look at the combined results so far. So 1:59 is the best lap from Rins, which definitely says to me that it was wet beforehand, which it was. So there is definitely some point taking part in this in this session. But with the wet weather, of course, it was proven in the Formula 1 last weekend that it's all about getting out at the time where the track is at its driest. One thing you've got to applaud Milestone for is the graphics in the wet. I mean, look at this. It looks horrible. It looks like a surface that nobody should be riding on. Never mind practically walking on. It'd be a nasty walk home in these conditions. But no, it should never be a surface that anybody's riding a bike on. And let's just hope for the sake of our weekend, because we can get some decent pace out of these conditions. But ultimately, the AI are king in these conditions. So let's hope we have a little bit of drier conditions over the weekend. But of course, we've got to set one of the 10 fastest times in the combined sessions to try and get into Q2. So we haven't done all too often this season. And to be fair, it'd be great to get into it today. Because I seriously think that around this track and Thailand, as I said before, we have got a chance of being high up on the grid. Purely because of our pace here. But if it's wet, I don't really fancy my chances. Because I'm not brave enough to take the pace into the corners. Because as you can see, even with our braking early tactic, we are still running wide at a lot of the corners. So these are pretty much just sighting laps, and at the same time we get some development points. So it's a win-win really. We'll see how we get on and see if we end up at the top 10 at the end of the session. I hope we are, but I have a few reservations about whether we will be. This is the situation with 5 minutes left. As you can see, we only need to gain 4/10 of a second to get into Q3. Now, Q2. Now, it's quite a mixed bag. You've got the likes of Maverick Vinales, who could be taking place, or taking part rather, in Q1, as well as Alex Rins. And we've got a few surprise names that are in that list for Q2. So hopefully we can join those and get out there and do kind of like a race simulation run. Well, actually, no, we're just going to get out on track normally and ultimately just see what sort of lap time we can do. We need to improve by half a second. Hopefully the conditions improve just slightly to allow us to do that and get into our first Q2 for a long while through getting a good time. We've definitely come out at the best time. The times are starting to tumble now. Even we went blooming fastest in the first sector compared to our times before, which is pretty mightily impressive. But we're definitely out there at the best time. Valentino Rossi has just beaten Dovi's time. Actually, Crutchlow was at the top of the rankings for just a slight while, which was interesting. But we're 9/10 of a second off Rossi's time. Now, I know that the delta to get into Q2 was a 1:58.5, but that was before everyone seemed to come out and do better lap times. So we've got time for 2 more after this one. So let's see, firstly, where this one puts us. Now, obviously, if it puts us in the top 10 of this session, theoretically, it should put us in the top 10 of the combined practice results. It's saying this is the driest session yet, but what is this lap time going to be? A 58.4, which only in this session now puts us in 14th place. That would have been enough a few minutes ago to get into Q2, but ultimately now we've got to push and push and push and just hope we can improve our lap time, because we are so close to getting into Q2, and I think today could well be the chance to do it. This is going to be really close. As you can see, we have had a really good lap here. We've really got it hooked up. We're only a 10th and a half off Valentino Rossi's time. So unless we muck this up completely in the last corner, we could be into our first Q2 in a while. But until it says it on my screen, I'm not going to confirm anything. We've got to power it around the last corner. There's so much time you can gain. A little bit wide. Get a good exit. Just power it through. Now the accelerator is all that can help us. What is the time going to be? It's P6. Is that going to be our first Q2, our first appearance for a while? We're in front of Cal as well. And it is! Oh, thank God for that. That means so much. That really does. We really had to push for that. And, well, the AI is necessarily not king now in these conditions. Jack Miller just misses out. We were just ahead of Jack Miller on track, actually, so he'd have been a bit annoyed by that. We've got Lorenzo in then, Morbidelli, Nakagami. So some interesting names in that session. But it looks like Maverick Vinales recovers. But most importantly, we are in to Q2. And second most importantly, only a smidgen less important than the fact we're into Q2, we have out-qualified, well, not out-qualified, sorry, outpaced our teammate. Great stuff. Oh, finally, Q2. This feels good. The engineer, thank God, I think he's thinking, oh, for goodness sake, thank God we got into Q2. We sit down just before the session starts, and now the serious stuff starts. Now, our objective is to qualify in the top 10, which is something we might actually be able to achieve today. Now, tyre choice is an interesting one. Pretty much the most of the field for this session going with soft. That can change throughout the session, but Dovi, interestingly, going for 2 medium tyres. But we're going to get out there straight away, see how we get on, do a bank lap, see how quick that is, and then go out at the end of the session, because it seems that the pattern on this game generally is that the sessions get drier as we move through them. But let's have a look anyway where our bank lap puts us in this session. Well, extraordinary, I never thought I would say this, but after our banker lap, we're on pole. Now, I'm just going to see if Alex Rins and Marquez improve on their second laps. They don't so far, but it's fairly close. But we're going to have to get out there pretty much straight away to try and defend our title. But Marquez has just gone up quicker again. So we could potentially be on for a very good qualifying here. But a good lap, we hooked it up. And I think we've finally got the rhythm of this circuit. It's just whether now we can improve. Because I think everybody probably will improve. I don't think it's going to stay like that for the rest of the session. But I could be completely wrong. And yeah, just as I say that, bang on. Marquez, I know Marquez is superhuman. But yeah, that proves that it might be time to get out there to do a few more laps. As you can see, we're firing up all personal bests. Now, even though the track is considerably quicker, obviously, based on the time of Marquez, we've only dropped 6 positions down to the 3rd row. 7th place I'd be quite happy with, but let's see where this time, and you've got to take it all out the last corner just to try and get as much pace as possible. You can use that curb, you don't get penalised for that. That's a bit of an improvement, but still 7th place. That's a place I definitely take on the grid. With 1 lap to go, I'm just going to try and be a bit more aggressive and see if we can get anything else out of this bike. Well, we did qualify in the top 10. There was a big delta between the top 8, as you can see, and everybody else. Miller, Petrucci, Petrucci, that's disappointing on the Ducati, but obviously the Ducati not really riding well in these conditions, and Alex Rins quite a way behind as well. But Maverick Vinales is just in front of us, as well as Johan Mir. But Marquez, Dovi and Rossi really in their own league, with Cal taking the victory today of the teammate battle. But still, 3rd row start. I just hope it's a dry race tomorrow, because I think then really is the only chance we'll get to show our true pace. I think failing that, I think we're really only going to fall backwards But you never know, we've got the pace, we've proven we've got the pace here. But let's see what the conditions are for tomorrow's race.
Welcome to the Spanish desert. We're at the Aragon circuit where the latest race in the MotoGP class is about to start. At the moment, the track is completely soaked from the rain that shows no signs of letting up. This will definitely prompt race direction to declare a wet race.
Oh dear. It's tipping it down. It looks worse than it has all weekend, to be honest. But we've just got to show the pace we have already and hopefully, well, stay on the bike. That's the most important thing. I think a lot of people fall off in these conditions. But the worst thing to try and get sorted here is the start. We have got time to do a bit of guided setup work before the start. So let's have a look where we might want to improve things. Maybe corner exit stability. I think we need to get that sorted as well. And fun, probably on corner entry as well. Deceleration, getting a little bit of a wobble, just to make sure that we can just keep it cool on the corners and get as much stability as the bike as possible. Christ, looks like we're wearing eyeliner there. But number 8 is our number, and that's exactly where we are on the grid. So just to run through the grid with you then, folks, we've got Marquez, Dovi, and Rossi on the front row. Great qualifying from Quartararo and Mir, beating their respective teammates by quite a fair amount. Viñales, ourselves, and Rins on the third row. That's a very solid third row. Disappointing day for Miller and Petrucci there, joined by Taka Nakagami on the fourth row. Then Espargaro, Morbidelli, and Bagnaia on the fifth row. Quite a decent quali, actually, for Bagnaia and for the KTM boys down the sixth row. And then a terrible day for Lorenzo, Abraham, Iannone, Shireen, and Rabat rounds out the grid, and that's what you'd really expect back there. But a testing time. Unfortunately, like a lot of motorsport, a lot of this comes down to the start. But let's just try and keep it cool and hopefully have a decent start. It's going to be tricky, but let's see how we get on. Lights are out, all uneven, and they're out. And away we go. Quick getaway there, just get all the camera angles sorted. I mean, that wasn't the worst start. We've lost a few places, but we haven't been mugged, certainly. A lot of people braking early in that corner, so we do take 1 or 2 positions back now. We just ride how we want to. We ride how we need to, rather. But just make sure we don't hit anyone. The KTM having a good start there, and Alex Rins and Petrucci both getting past us at this early stage. Nakagami as well having a really good start, so it's clear there was quite a change about. Probably, that's Petrucci running wide, and purely because we took a little bit too much speed into there. We whacked him right on the back, but Lorenzo's gone back, not really much surprise there. But a decent start. Oliveira, a great start for him on the KTM into the top 10, but Danny Petrucci is just ahead of us. Nakagami, as I said, in 7th. That's a bit of a surprise. Valley has fallen back a little bit, seems, off the front row. Oh, and that's a crash. Valentino Rossi is off the bike. We saw that. He almost, well, I can't really remember what happened there, to be honest. I was too focused on ourselves. It was almost like one person turned it on the other. We've got a bit of a squeeze here with Oliveira, and he's made that move well, because he just didn't give us any sort of space. But Valentino Rossi falls off the bike. That's probably the first crash we've seen between two AI happen right in front of our eyes. But a decent start for us here. Hopefully get the acceleration on Oliveira out of here to retake P8. And at the end of the day, we've kept our grid position. Seems that Cal has fell back a little bit on the grid. So good to see that we've outdone him on the grid. It's not necessarily a big competition between the two of us, but it does give us a little bit of pride to be the lead LCR Honda. But, well, we're not actually the lead in LCR Honda, are we? Because Nakagami is making a mug of both of us at the moment, but it seems that Cal has got up to 9th place. But a good start. That is not where we want to go, though. That could give Cal the impetus he needs on the straight to get past. That's a little bit of a disappointment, and they're all going to come after us now because of that stupid excursion into the gravel, if you like. But don't want to be too aggressive now. Just focus on keeping it. I mean, look at that into the last corner. A lot of people braking a lot later than me and getting the rewards from it. But we take a different line and we gain now. We gain on the accelerator. That's visible. We can use the curb. It is part of the racetrack. And we've regained those positions. We've got Dovi in first. Joan Mir, massively great start for him. All the way up in third. Oh no, I think it's second actually he's in. But we're trying to focus on our own battle. It's tricky to look at the leaderboard and focus on your own ride at the same time. Push Morbidelli out a little bit here. Nelson Oliveira just up ahead. So tricky. We've seen this at different tracks where everyone takes different lines. But 9th place at the moment, a good start from us, and we could be in for a solid haul of points. But rather than looking back at the guys we need to... Oh, that's frustrating, getting a bit of a penalty there. Rather than the guys we need to defend from, I think we need to focus ahead and try and keep with those guys. As you can see, unfortunately, Morbidelli's took the place. It's so tricky when everyone takes different lines. Ultimately, the AI are king at that as well. They know the best racing lines. We just try and take advantage where we can according to our own riding style. But it looks like the other group is a little bit further back now, so 10th place wouldn't be all that bad. It'd just be a shame to only get 6 points considering the pace we've had this weekend. But still, our name is still on the top 10, and that's where I'd like it to stay. Well, unfortunately, this has just been a case of hold station, really, for the rest of the race. I think the problem is when, I think in any sort of motorsport, when riders like Morbidelli and Crutchlow get past, you think, oh, I've not really got much chance of catching them. So, inevitably, your pace slows down a little bit just through not having that sheer aggressive streak. But the most important thing was, as I mentioned firstly, that we held station, and that looks like we're going to do that. Yeah, oh, blimey, Swans ran very wide that last corner. Yes, we are probably about a second clear of the guys behind, but ultimately all we need is a 2.5 tenth gap. So we come across the line and finish in this, what can only be described really as a monsoon race, in 10th place. Another 6 points for the team, and a good race, but a very, very, very bizarre field really, because you've got Dovi who won the race, but Johan Mir and Quattararo on the podium. Marquez in 4th, the wonders continue with Nakagami being the lead LCR Honda. Petrucci in 7th, Crutchlow 8th, Morbidelli 9th, ourselves in 10th. Both of the Yamahas, of course, Vinales didn't qualify well, and Valentino Rossi, of course, fell off the bike just about getting into the points. Lorenzo just about misses out, and Jack Miller, a disastrous race for him, all the way in last place. It's a very rare opportunity for Bagnaia to actually beat his teammate on inferior machinery. But after that race, another 6 points. Dovi is starting to take control a little bit of this championship, and it's definitely going into a 2-horse race. Now, our championship objective is to finish in the top 10. Now, you can visibly see at this point that the fact that Quattararo's on 97 means that, to be fair, unless we get a race win before the end of the season, that really isn't going to happen. We're going to need really a podium every race to make that work realistically. So, a bit of a shame that we're not going to get there, but I think that the likes of Espargaro and Morbidelli, particularly if we're getting 6-7 points a race, could be a realistic goal to get up to, but I think the realistic goal, particularly, is to beat Nakagami on the LCR Honda. But so we've just gone past Lorenzo in the championship, which makes Jorge Lorenzo unbelievably the last Honda in the championship, which is quite unbelievable. But now we go to the Thai Grand Prix, which I just hope for the sake of us isn't as wet as this race. Because I generally think in the dry we've got some solid pace around Thailand, and could be a good opportunity for, as we mentioned earlier, potentially a podium. And although we're happy with this result, it's a good result. It's our first good result in a while. Yes, we did have that result in Mazzano, but it's good to get that consistency. And of course, that consistency, I think fingers crossed, should continue into the Thai Grand Prix, and that is up next. Well, it's not good news here, unfortunately. The first two F3 practices were wet, very wet. And this one was damp. We just couldn't get the pace. We just really couldn't. So we're in Q1 again. That's just really frustrating. Because particularly at a track that I thought we got good pace at, visibly, we're about a second off what we need to get into Q2. So hopefully, either the next session is dry, or we get a little bit of a light bulb moment where we gain some pace. Coming up to the end of our Q1 banker then, and it's clearly not going to be this easy. We're about 2 seconds up on the pace of Alex Rins. That would suggest the track is drying quite a bit, but it's all about being out there at the right time, which is exactly what we are now. But let's see what our banker lap is here. We've got pretty much everyone out on the track. They all come out a little bit later than me, though. We do struggle around that final corner and lose a little bit of pace. But as you can see, the lap time a lot quicker than Rins, so it's obvious that the track is drying. But hopefully, we can keep up with the pace of the guys, irrespective of what they do. Now the track is getting drier. I think even the weather outside's taking a hint now, just starting to thrash it down with rain. Jesus Christ, it's rain all around. And in terms of our story, Alex Rins just absolutely whooped anybody else's time. And I can't get within 3 seconds of it. So what might be whether he started his lap at the right time. He might even be on dry tyres, who knows. But that is a poor first sector. And to be quite honest, I think this is going to be a failure of a qualifying session. I'm really disappointed. It's a track that we're really good at, usually, but looks like we're going to fail to get into Q2 here.
Hello everyone from the Chang International Circuit, where the Thai round of the MotoGP Championship is about to start. The weather forecasts are very reassuring. We'll have sunny weather for the entire duration of the race.
Now, this should be a fun race today. You might say it's weird that I've just cut from Keith. I usually go straight in, but it was that wet outside. I've just had to close the window. It was so loud. But we've got Dovi on pole for this race, it seems. I presume we're on soft tyres. We've got Marquez and Rossi joining him on the front row. Dovi really starting to take control of this championship now. A good recovery from the last race, qualifying for Rins and Miller, with Crutchlow joining them on the second row. Mav, Danny and Frankie on the third row, with a good qualifying from, what's his face, Nakagami and Quattraro as well. Lorenzo, a bit of an improvement, and a kudos to the Real Avintia guys on the 6th row, a good qualifying for them. We start on the 7th row alongside Iannone and Oliveira, and interestingly, a back row I wouldn't have predicted is Pecco Bagnaia and Paul Espargaro. But this is a fun race. It should really be a back-to-front exercise, because I think we've got good pace in this clear weather. It's certainly not going to be back-to-front in terms of we'll go from the back of the grid to win the race, but I'm fairly confident we should pick up some good points as long as we stay on the bike. So here we go then for the Thai Grand Prix race. We've done well in the past. We've never been this far back on the grid, admittedly, but hopefully we can recover from this position. Not a great qualifying. Let's see if we can contrast that greatly with our race result. Lights are on then at the Thai circuit. And we are away. Good start from the KTM to the right of us there. Decent start from us, to be fair. Not all that bad. And a little bit of wheelie there, but we control that and do fairly decently out of it. So into the first corner, it's just beautiful for it to be dry. A little bit of pace out of that corner, and let's see where we can get to. A little bit of wheelie out of that corner, but this is a real opportunity to try and gain places at the start of this Grand Prix. We go so far up the inside, it's painful, and we'll brake nice and early here, but hopefully pick off a few positions, because these are the real times we have a chance to get a position. Try and get within everybody else, and the grid, I mean, truly, we've only gained 1 or 2 positions on the start of this, which is a little bit of a disappointment, but everybody is so close together, trying to gain places on this dry start. The first bit of dry weather around the circuit all weekend, which is lovely, but in theory we've only really gained 1 position on the start. That is way too late into there, and we've lost a few positions because of that. So not the best start ultimately. I think we might have set an objective that was too much for ourselves, and actually we've now fell to the back of the grid. Aprilia's, both Aprilia's at the back of the grid, which is a little bit of a surprise, but we're struggling to gain pace. I think we're just trying to be too different at the moment. We're not getting into a rhythm at all. And as you can visibly see, we're going wide everywhere. As I said, I wanted consistency now. Coming to the back end of this season, we've had our few races to get used to this LCR bike. So let's see. Even though it's not been the best start, I mean, this is catastrophic. We're battling at the back here. We really don't want to be doing that. So just trying to get past Iannone as quick as possible. Within that, we're just taking stupid lines. We need to focus a lot more on just being cool, calm, collected. We know we've got the pace. We don't need to start thrashing it about. But no, we need to, I could do with scoring points here. But there's still plenty of time in this race. It's Valentino Rossi leading on the end of the first lap. But not, in fact, the worst possible outcome. Apart from falling off the bike on that first lap. Well, rather than a back-to-front operation, this seems to be a bit of a back-to-back operation at the moment. I mean, we've got past Iannone, but as you can see, his pace is just, well, poor drivel, to be honest, compared to the rest of the field. Yes, we're keeping pace with the guys ahead, but we haven't got a real pace advantage. I just feel on this game, and it's a good thing as well, I feel that getting a pattern and getting consistency is a huge thing. Like in the race at Aragon, we didn't really have any pace in the practice sessions until something clicked, and that's all I can describe it as. Something just clicks and you get pace, and you have that some weekends you just don't, and here I just expected to have that click quite early on, but I don't know whether because it's dry or what, but we just haven't had that so far this weekend. So after the highs of Aragon, I think we're going to be forced to have a low here, and to be honest, I suppose that because we look at Motegi with a little bit of doubt and a little bit of, oh, I don't really think we're going to do anything there, we might do quite well, because actually sometimes if you put a bit of expectation on yourself, like we have here, you know, oh, we should go from back to front here because we've got the pace and we haven't, maybe some reverse psychology might work going into the next race. Well, unfortunately for you guys so far this episode, there's not really been much action from the races. FP3 and the qualifying sections have been quite exciting, but the race has been very much a case of hold station, particularly here. It's been quite a bore to ride, to be quite honest. But I'll let you watch the final lap to get your bit of racing fix, but not really much of a race today. A little bit like the Aragon race. Yes, we held position and got some good points, but ultimately here we've held position and been a little bit humiliated. We were nowhere in this race. I think it's because we haven't had any sort of run in the dry here. As I said, I'm usually pretty good around this circuit, but ultimately I think, as I was alluding to earlier, a lot of this getting pace is all about rhythm. We've kept up with the guys ahead, and you know, there are no mugs on the Aprilias, etc, etc, but there's no way we're going to get any points now. We might get 1 or 2 positions if we get some sort of momentum, but I think it's that next group that holds the points. Might as well go up the inside of Aleix Espargaro here. It's no harm, but he's regained the position. We might as well have a bit of a fighting chance. If we fall off the bike, does it matter at this point? Of course not, because we're not going to get any points anyway. So it's just for pride that were fighting for these positions, going way out wide there, but we'll take the position. It's a little bit cheeky, but no penalty for that, so we'll live with it. But to be honest, I think with this 2/10 time penalty, I'm not sure where we got that. I just noticed we had got that at some point. With that wrapped around on there, we've not really got anything to fight for now, particularly if we get past someone so close to the finish. We're not really going to be able to get a gap. But another race won for Andrea Dovizioso. Good run through there to get past Aleix, but it looks like he's just going to go for it straight up the last corner once again. We broke a little bit too late, and a really disappointing Grand Prix there. 22nd place, and we won't look back on that one with much pride, really. Quite a poor Grand Prix and quite a poor weekend. Another win for Dovi. Makes it even worse that Crutchlow was on the podium, really, and Rins in third. But Dovi pulls out a further lead in the championship. Looks like it's his to lose now, and Lorenzo retakes that 15th place from us. So it's now time for the last race of the episode, and fingers crossed an exciting one. It's the Japanese Grand Prix. Well, it's not going well today, is it? It really isn't. It was a good race at Aragon, but it's just disastrous here. We're at the back of the pack. I mean, I completely forgot before the end of the session. We hadn't got enough time to change the bike because the bike's horrible. It won't brake, the accelerator is crap. I don't like to blame the bike, but it's definitely limiting us from getting good times here because it's just way too wobbly out the corners and just doesn't decelerate, so we're having to brake a lot earlier. And the problem with this track is that it's Honda's home race. We've really got to perform here, and we're probably going to be eating up sort of half of our Q1 time, I would say, by making these changes to the bike, which could be a massive problem. But we'll see how we get on, and maybe we might be able to get through to Q2. Well, there hasn't been enough time to make all the changes we wanted. That's pretty much expected, but the bike doesn't really feel that much better, it has to be said, so it's really annoying. This is just going to have to face the machinery we've got. The problem is we're just not getting the acceleration out the corners, and even though I fiddle with the gear ratios, I'm still having myself to change from second to third because the bike's just wobbling in second, and we need to get up to third as soon as possible to make sure that that is an effect that doesn't go on for too long. But ultimately we lose a little bit of speed by taking it up ourselves purely because we don't get the acceleration we want. But we've got 4.5 minutes. It's time really to stop moaning, get riding, and see what we can get out of the bike. That is mega frustrating. In the first two sectors, we're within a tenth for the fastest time. That third sector, we're losing all of our time, I would say. We're 8 tenths back just in that one sector of the track. And, I mean, I said for the engineers to work on the deceleration, it's not responding quick enough. But as you could visibly see there, that wasn't quick enough into that corner. We really had to pound the brakes down just to get a decent line into the corner. But ultimately, not the best lap. We're struggling out the last corner. That's our problem. We are just really struggling. What's the lap time going to be? It's P5, which to be fair isn't all that bad. P6 now because the guy behind us, whoever that is, has just taken our place. But we've got, what's that, probably 2 laps left here. So that's not a bad lap banker. That's, you know, something we can potentially improve on. And I don't think the situation is all that bad here, but we're going to struggle to get out of this session, I would say. Oh, what about that for a first sector? Jesus Christ, the same time as, I don't know who's the top, because unfortunately we can't see, because of a glitch, who's at the top of the times, but this is starting to trickle out. It's clear that our first 2 sectors are absolutely fine. Our first 2 sectors are nailed on, and it's the third sector we lose the time. I'll show you the third sector. I mean, we've lost, what, 600ths there, which would really keep us in the battle for second, but it's this sector that we lose a great amount of time. Don't think it's this corner where we lose, it's the next 2, I would say. This corner isn't too bad, but it's the accelerator that we get on the out was the problem, because we have to shift up fairly quickly to third just to avoid getting a wheelie. And I know you could say, well, turn the anti-wheelie up then on the electronics. It just gives that much more of a challenge. That's actually our best line through there that we've had all day. Accelerator, let's see what the damage is then at the end of this sector. Still 8 tenths, so it's really crushing our time. I mean, this last bit should be a little bit better managed from me this time, knowing that the brakes still aren't up to tip-top, but still not the best through there ultimately. Get the acceleration through there. As I say, it's a weak track. It's not my favourite, and this last sector is horrible. I hate this bloody corner because it's just stop, start, and if you get it just about wrong like we did there, you can lose a lot of time. Now, on the curb, that's not the best place to be. I don't think it's going to be a personal best here, and it's not. I genuinely thought we'd be a bit more I mean, that's way wide. I think that's going to be it for this lap, so that'll be the last lap of the session. I was a lot more positive coming into this episode because we were like, good, we've got that result at Aragon, we might have shook off all the frustration now, but it looks like that it's just a one-off and that's really going to continue. Well, we did improve, but only minutely, just to get off the back row, and we're quite a while off. I mean, it's not too far off our contemporaries, really, but ultimately we need to be aiming to be at the pace of Joan Mir and Viñales, but for the last race of the episode, we are on the second to back row, and that is a disappointing qualifying. But it's all onwards and upwards from here, and let's hope the race is a lot better than it was in Thailand.
Greetings from the land of the rising sun. Today the World Championship is being held at the MotoGP circuit, where the MotoGP class race is about to start. The skies over the track are clear of clouds, and the latest weather reports forecast temperatures in line with the seasonal average.
Well, thank God it's dry. For one thing, thank God it is dry. But it's going to be an interesting Grand Prix. Who's on pole? I think that it's more exciting to focus on the championship battle ultimately now they're our own battle, because we're just getting the odd point or two in this season. Taking a while to load though. This is, I don't particularly know why. It's usually fairly quick to load. It's Marquez who takes pole, so pole for the Honda, that's great. But ultimately, we've got to make a lot of setup changes. So deceleration was the problem. It's well, it's sliding on deceleration, not necessarily anything else. On the corners, I'd say the handling precision is handling is a little bit of a low response. So that's been sorted. There's a lot of problems you can see. Corner exit, I'd say we get low traction out of the corners. Again, precision, that's okay. Stability, it's wobbling a bit on the corner exit, definitely. And then finally, I think in terms of the straights, in terms of speed, we're getting quite low speed on the straights. So, that was a hell of a lot of changes on the bike. We start 20th, but with those changes, fingers crossed we can improve. So let's have a look at the grid. So it's Marquez, Rossi and Rins on the front row, with Dovi, Petrucci and Crutchlow on the second row. Good qualifying there, particularly from Alex Rins. Viñales out of his Q1 appearance goes up to 7th. Solid start for him with a Spargro. Great weekend for him in 9th. And actually, Jorge Lorenzo starts 12th. That's going to be one of the best of his season, ultimately. The Brabata, good qualifying again from him on the Avincia bike, with Bagnar in 15th. And at the back of the grid, we're alongside Abraham and Espargaro, starting exactly where we did in the Thai Grand Prix with Shireen. And I think it was it Paul Espargaro on the back row. But really, I'd love to put a show on for the Honda fans today. Fingers crossed with all those changes we've made to the bike. We should be a little bit better placed and better suited to get a good result here. Last Grand Prix of the day, though. Lights are on above the riders. And it's lights out. And away we go for the Japanese Grand Prix. It's so tricky just to get off without getting a wheelie here. And ultimately, if you start 20th, I suppose being at the back of the grid isn't the worst place to be. But ultimately, it then means you can pick and choose where you are for the second corner, which was a great run through there. And that was quite literally an awesome start. Already into the points. Petrucci and Dovi on the Ducati have an absolutely disastrous start. That is quite late breaking here. No, a fantastic start from him. We run Marquez wide. Wow, what a start that was. Awesome. A little bit like Sachsenring, and sometimes a lot of it does come down to the start. Have we got a rejuvenated bike? We make that many changes on the grid that sometimes we make too many changes. What is it about too many cooks spoil the pot? That's too wide a little bit there, but it's absolutely fine. Yeah, what's that about too many cooks spoil the pot or something along those lines? But it doesn't seem like that's happened here. We're into the top 10 here. Lorenzo also in the top 10. Let's just be careful we don't be too aggressive, because some points today would be absolutely awesome. But quite a bad start for Marquez and for Dovi and for Petrucci. And whilst they make terrible starts, we've an absolutely awesome start here. But let's have a look what these two corners are like with this new setup. Ultimately, this comes a little bit more down to gear ratio, something that our engineer can't really solve. But I would say, I mean, look at Dovi's pace off that corner. That's ridiculous. But I'd say we're going to do a little bit like we've done before. I'd say we're just going to go back here, but we're going to try and battle with the guys ahead. Quartararo and Morbidelli having an absolutely terrible start. But it's just so visible, as you can see, that Dovi pulls away so much on that straight. And we are effectively a sitting duck. But we're in to 11th place after this first lap. And it'd be good to pick up some points after a terrible qualifying. It is heartbreaking, this is. It really is. I know it's been the same for most of the races today. But in the first two sectors, it's visible, that, especially in the first few laps, that the top 10, I mean, it's Dovi and Marquez in front of us. Who would have predicted that? But they don't really pull away. And then we get up to these last two sectors and they completely go off up the road. So you can make as much time as you want up in the first two sectors. We could literally be a second in front of the field. come into the third sector, and then for some reason, these last two sectors we are rubbish at, so it's all about trying to get that gap on the first half of the lap to the guys behind, and then keeping that in the last two sectors. But that being said, I think after where we've qualified in 20th, to say, look, you're going to get a decent points finish today. Obviously, it's not over yet, so don't want to count our chickens too early. That's very wide and very nearly off, but unbelievable that Espargaro. That is a lash, isn't it, on the Aprilia in 4th place. Great result for him. That would be fantastic for him. We've got the Avintia of Rabat just behind us. Can't remember what I was saying there. I've lost my train of thought. But no, if you'd have said to me if we started in 20th that we'd get a decent points finish, I'd take that with both hands, and ultimately it's all about trying to get those points finishes. Remember that it is still our debut season in MotoGP, so we're still learning the bike. It's a completely different atmosphere compared to Moto2 and Moto3, because in Moto2 and Moto3, the cream is expected to rise to the top. Sure, the same applies with MotoGP, but MotoGP is a hell of a lot more competitive. It's the premier class, it's the most heavy, the most tricky bikes to ride, and ultimately I'd say it's taken us all season to get used to these bikes, and particularly around all of the circuits, and that's something that will just come a little bit more naturally in future seasons. But bear in mind as well, we did change teams second half of the season to this Honda bike, of course, and that is a massive change. It's not just a little thing, it's a completely different bike, going from a Ducati 18 model to a Honda 19 model, which is very different in its handling, its speed, etc. So it's all about coping with that. And I think that today we've not done too badly. It's 2 points finishes, it looks like here, unless we make a silly mistake. But really, we haven't fell off all day, so that is one positive to take. And it's been a decent episode, apart from the fact that, really, on most occasions, we're pretty lucky to be here, I'd argue, in this position, as the fastest laps will probably show. But it's all about where you are at the right time, and that's why we've been here and in Aragon, not so much in Thailand, though. Last lap time, then, for today's episode. Looks like we're going to hold this 11th place, not been too badly, but I think the way the AI are and how quick they are, it's ultimately just a game of hold station, particularly around circuits that I confess I'm not very good at, like here. So it's all about gaining as much as we can on the start, which we did. To be fair, we had a good start. We gained a lot of place, a lot like at the Saxon Ring. We draw a lot of comparisons to that sort of track. But I think we've been a little bit unlucky at tracks like Thailand, like Silverstone, that I've said, look, I love these tracks, and I think I'm fairly handy at them, but I don't think the weather's played in our hands, because I do think, in the wet weather particularly, the AI do have an advantage. Of course, it takes longer to get used to the tracks in the wet weather in terms of the braking distance, how much you can accelerate, and it all adds to the beauty of it, I guess, but it's a little bit annoying that we couldn't take chances there. But after this race, there's only 3 races left for the season. We've got to prove ourselves really to the Honda team. Yes, we've been doing half decently, but nothing fantastic. And I think they'll keep us on for next season. I don't see really why they wouldn't. We've had a few decent results, and at the end of the day, for a debut MotoGP season, we've not been proved a mug, but it'd be good to produce something in the next few races that says to the team, look, oh, that's Viñales just behind us. Didn't realise he'd been behind us the whole race. But just something to say, I mean, he's going to get past. So unfortunately, I'm not going to quite hold 11th place. But something to just say to the team in the last 3 races, look, that's why I deserve a contract for next season. And you can see that all on Thursday at 8 PM, the last episode of the season. But coming around the last few corners now, we're going to try and get back past Viñales without falling off the bike. But no, we ain't going to get back past him. There's no point bothering. But Alex Rins has broken the streak of Dovizioso. A little bit disappointing round here that we haven't got a winner from Honda, with it being the home of Honda in Japan. But 4 points for us, not been disgraced whatsoever at this race, and it was a good Grand Prix. But Crutchlow gets on the podium. Really a bad race for the title protagonists, and Zarco, Lorenzo, and particularly Elisha Sparger on the Aprilia, the big gainers from this race, with Shireen getting the last point on the KTM, and Danilo Petrucci, don't know what happened to him, he had a particularly bad race, but still a good gap to Marquez and Rins has Dovi got. You can see we are now down in 16th place, we're still there, but no, a decent race really, scored a few points with 3 races to go, and I think we should still get the 16th place. We're not going to get top 10, that's nigh on impossible. I mean, we need 75 points, well, yeah, 75 points give us 112, which of course means winning every single race. So I think 11th is the only serious place we can get to, but to be fair, even that would be a stretch, getting 30 odd points in the next 3 races. But that's it, folks, for today's episode of MotoGP. I hope you've enjoyed as much as I have We'll be back on Thursday for the season finale, and you can see who wins the championship and how our debut season of MotoGP ends. Thank you very much for your company today, folks, and I will see you guys later on. Goodbye for now.